Hey Zoomers, welcome back to World Zoom. So happy you could join me today. Thanks for coming out with me for a little walk in the park. So I keep waiting for the weather to turn here. It's like 62 or 63 degrees here. As you know about me, I like it in the 80s and 90s. So when I got up this morning, it was like 51. That's not great for me. I prefer it much hotter than that, but at least I got a chance to get out and run this morning. Now I'm just stretching the legs with a walk here along the river, so which is a pretty nice little stroll. Vitaly's dad has made it, flown into Manila in the Philippines. So here's a photo first of him getting on the phone before he gets off of the plane. And secondly, a phone shot of him standing there waiting for the luggage to arrive. Now, this can be a good thing or a bad thing for Vitaly. Probably mostly good. Maybe not so good for the parents, or dependent on who's going to be footing the bill. I know a lot of you keep saying, he's really wealthy type of guy, and maybe his parent, father in this case, is just coming for moral support. But as I understand it, he's come to see what he can do about at least receiving bail. And if not bail, he's retaining a high-flying law firm there in Manila to help get his son out of the Filipino prison and get him deported. In this case, back to the U.S., where he's going to be trying to get to. So usually when a parent, when you get in trouble in a third world country, especially one that's got some issues, with trust and being upfront, they're always looking for an angle to determine how much they can get out of you. To give a bail or to give a deportation or to sign for him to be extradited, sent out of the country, whatever it might be. So when a wealthy family flies in, there can be some action happening, especially when they hire a good, strong Filipino law firm to help them get through the process, but also understand, like in these cases, the dollar amount is just going to go up. The dollar amount is up for him to retain the law firm. It was already going to be high anyway, since the president made those comments on national television. There's always going to be an uphill climb for him, especially to get bail. I don't think that's real likely to have something like that happening at this point. They're really slow to give bail anyway, and to think that they would give a person of wealth and of means bail in the Philippines, with his travel background, with a couple different passports and things, that may not be happening, but it certainly will help get him in that Tuesday pile. The Department of Immigration meets every Tuesday, year-round, and they go through the stack of papers that are in that meeting room. That's the head of the, commissioners, the head of immigration. Now, he's gone. He was replaced for, some issues that he was having with the Department of Immigration. That was Norman Tancinco. He's out, but in that meeting will be the new head of immigration and his three people his under, along with a whole host of groups that allow that meeting to happen. But what happens is they look at the stack of paper that they have that's been prearranged depending on who the person being discussed has been able to get in contact with. So let's say Vitaly is able to retain a strong counsel, and then they've already met with someone in that immigration department. And so after that, then, he could get on the short list, depending on what kind of money, that they pay to get to the top of that stack. So let me just tell you exactly how it works. If you have money and you're willing to make a contribution to those government entities, if you give them the money on a Friday, you can be at the top of the stack on Tuesday and have your case decided. If you don't have money, then, most likely you're looking at a year, 18 months, even 2 years to be able to work your way up that stack. That's just how it works in third world countries. So having a father there that has probably brought his credit card with him to retain counsel will get the attention of the immigration department, and ideally then they would make some determination, especially now that the elections are over and they don't have to worry as much about looking weak on crime or it getting so much press. Now they can sort of go back a little bit more to business as usual a couple days after the election here. And so, he could get in that short stack, to have some determination by immigration, or at least, ideally he's going to get a deportation order. Now, after he has that deportation order, then he has to go into the Department of Justice, where they're going to have to do a check of him to make sure he doesn't have any additional crimes in the country. That's when they'll see that a couple of Filipinos have filed complaints against him, and it'll come out at that stage, which would then allow Vitaly's father or legal counsel or both to meet with those individuals, settle the complaints for fiscal settlement, have them withdrawn. Then he'll be sitting there with that deportation agreement and be able to depart the country. So that's how it would normally work if you're willing to pay to get to the top of the stack. And that amount varies. You have to pay 50,000 pesos even to be considered to be out on bond, but that's just to have them make a determination. I've heard anywhere between $5,000 to $8,000 to have bond be successful for you to leave the immigration holding or the prisons to be out on bond. I think otherwise he would qualify for something like that, but the nature of the charges and the fact that top officials are involved leads me to believe he'll probably stay in jail until they finish the deportation order that would come, and then the review by the judicial system, where they look at every province in the country. One of the big problems with there is that it's done via the mail system. We all know how the Philippine mail system is. Hey, sometimes the U.S. can be equally as bad, but they're actually mail out these requests to the different courts. And then, it can be 15, 20 days until that mail actually arrives, depending on where he's been in the provinces. If he stayed in Luzon, then, sometimes the process is a little bit quicker. If he didn't and went to the outlying provinces, then sometimes that's a longer process. So they have to find out that he has a case in the individual courts, find out, who the plaintiff is, and make arrangements to make sure that they have the opportunity to meet with them, settle the money, tell the courts that it's been settled, and then, he would actually be free to go. But he could certainly, I think at an absolute minimum, he'll have a 5-year ban. And in this case, just because of the publicity, he could just as easily have a lifetime ban from the Philippines. Those aren't especially common to get the lifetime bans, but I think under these circumstances, he wouldn't want to come back anyway. I would doubt that very much. But even if he did want to come back, he would have an uphill fight to do that. So anyway, good news, depending on how you look at it, that his father shown up. That's always nice to be able to have that support that's coming your way. I don't think it's really likely, in some cases when the family comes in to support the individual that's being detained, they have a risk themselves of also being detained. That has not been a history and haven't seen that happening, in the Philippines. So I don't think that should be a worry of his father. He flies in to hire counsel, to settle his debts, to meet with people, to pay off who he needs to pay off, and then he gets detained as well. I don't think that's likely, but the price definitely went up. But as I understand from social media and some legitimate accounts, money may not be a huge issue with the family, and so if they have to spend 20 to 30,000 US dollars to get him out of the situation that he's in, either he can do it and handle it, or his parents sounds like they probably can as well. So anyway, just wanted to let you know that he has arrived. He's staying in Manila. He's found legal counsel, retained legal counsel, and they'll be setting up the private meetings with the lawyers in the immigration department to try and get him on the short list to have his case seen. And the cases are seen every Tuesday year round. So anyway, from World Zoom, appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming on the walk. Hope it wasn't too shaky. And not too bad, not too much wind today at all. So I'm hopeful anyway. So anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. You take care. Bye-bye.